Gandhi joins me now. Welcome to you. You are an agent of change, an activist, an author, and the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi. And you've just opened the 8th Forum for the Future of Agriculture here at the Square in Brussels this morning with your address. May I start by asking you, in a sense yours was a very simple message. You talked about your grandfather's talisman of thinking about each individual's actions every day. Imagine the poorest person in the world and whether what we have done each day can help or oppress that person. It's a simple message, but in a complicated world.
Yes, it is, and sometimes it is these simple things that we overlook and don't do, and we deliberately complicate our lives there. But if we go back to the simplicity of it and just help in whatever way we can constructively to elevate the poverty that exists in our societies today, we would be able to make our world a much peaceful and harmonious place.
Your message is, of course, of peace.
Yes.
And when we think about hunger, that remains one of the biggest scandals in the world still. You talked about it being a sort of act of passive violence, not of active violence, but of passive violence. I know in the forum just now you said that there wasn't enough time to share any real examples, but I know you have examples of working with the poorest in India and helping solve this crisis of hunger, which is that scandal.
Yes, we did. In Mumbai, for instance, we had a lot of homeless people living in Mumbai city in search of survival, and they used to beg for food and eat scraps that were thrown at them. Well, my friends and I, we brought together about 700 of these people, and we said, we will help you, but we will not give you anything on a platter. You are the problem, and you are going to be part of the solution. And so we were able to talk to them and win their confidence and build a relationship with them. And then we told them, you got to save a coin every day. Now, where are you going to get this from? I don't know. But if you have to sacrifice something, for instance, if you drink 3 cups of tea a day, cut it down to 2 cups of tea and save that money. Or whatever it is, individually all of you do, but collectively put aside a coin every day and create a fund. Now, they took up that challenge, and in 2 years, from 1970, in 1972, they came back with the equivalent of $10,000. And with that money, we bought them 10 second-hand textile machines and installed them in a little tin shed in their village and sent them back to run this factory round the clock. Now, they didn't know anything about money management or marketing or production or anything. All of these things we had to train them. We had to teach them how to do it, train them. When they became confident, we handed over charge to them, and they worked very hard. They made those factories successful. They expanded. By 1980, they had 8 factories running with nearly 700 machines. And all the people who had contributed to the fund came back, and they're living a better life in their homes with their families. Their children have gone to schools and colleges and education, and they've come back to the village and provided the infrastructure, running schools, providing medical health facilities, and all of these things that came out of that one little act of ours, helping them rebuild their self-respect and self-confidence so that they could do it for themselves.
Your message has been very much one of those kind of examples of what you describe as constructive action. And yet when we think about the world and looking at the future of agriculture, and here we are in Brussels today, when we look at the policy framework, we're talking about the UN Sustainable Development Goals as well today. How do these forward those constructive actions?
Well, we produce a lot of food, and yet it has detrimental effect. People like me, we overeat and get fat and obese, and we need health do health exercises so that we can reduce ourselves. And it doesn't help us. We don't need more food. What we need is a better distribution of the food to ensure that food gets to all the people there. How do we do this without making a profit is the concern that should be addressed by all the people here. And one of the things I would say offhand, and I don't know whether that works or not, that you have half of your production for profit making and the other half of the production give it at cost price to people who can't afford it and feed them. But what is happening is now, I read in the New York Times 2 weeks ago that in the United States alone, they are destroying $120 billion worth of food every year. Destroying, going into the garbage. $120 billion worth of food.
One of the issues that will be debated today is the idea of the circular economy and waste being a resource, in a sense, looking at the way in which economy has to grow, but that balance that you talked of profit. Economic growth used to be coupled with degradation of the environment in the same way as activism in your world was always associated with some sort of violence, but we need to decouple these things, don't we? What's your hope? What's your final thought that you'd leave for the conference? We're talking about looking at the future of agriculture.
Yes, it is a very important thing that we need to ensure that the environment is safeguarded. But as long as we do not address the poverty issue, we will never be able to save the environment. Because in countries like India, and I'm sure even Brazil and other places where there are many poor people, they don't have fuel for their needs. So they go and chop up the woods for firewood so they can cook their meals or keep themselves warm during winter.
And it's the same issue for farmers. They need to produce more with less inputs, that the land isn't going to grow. So of course they do cut down the land. Looking to produce good food then, a final message there. It's bad to produce only food that the rich can afford. That's the central thesis that you're leaving conference with today.
Yes, it is. And again, one other thing that is happening in modern times is that we have come to believe that land is nothing but something for us to exploit. But in the Indian tradition, we always believed that land is our mother. Land is something that gives us nourishment and produces all the things that we need. There was a direct organic relationship between human beings and land, soil. And there was a time even in the United States when a small farmer could go and pick up soil, and just by looking at it and feeling it, he would know what is wrong with the soil, what it needs, and what kind of crop rotation it needs, and all that he could figure out just by that touch. Now that touch is lost because there are no small farmers. There are these big farmers who sit in the air-conditioned cabin of their big harvesters, and they have no connection with the land. They just sit in there and harvest thousands of acres of land, and that connection between the land and the people is destroyed.
Well, this is one of the things that Forum will be talking about today, that connection with Earth as Mother. We've run out of time. Arun Gandhi, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to talk to you.